The old school RuneScape client dilemma. RuneLite versus the Steam client versus OS, but actually, it's pretty much just RuneLite versus the Steam client. Last year in February, Old School was released on Steam, the biggest digital distribution platform on the internet. This was massive news, a way to showcase Old School to millions of new and potential players. And when the game hit, it even had a spot on the front page of Steam. On day one, we had a decent amount of new players and peaked in the top 150 games on Steam. Almost 1 year later, however, we're all the way down here. Here's why. Now, before we continue any further, I have a challenge for all of you. In front of you are 4 items. What do these 4 items have in common? Still not sure? Here, let me zoom in for you. An ancient shard, silver, an energy refill, and an XP boost. If you guessed rewards that you can get by using my link below to play Raid Shadow Legends, you win.
You earned a gold medal.
It's no surprise that Raid is everyone's favorite mobile game. My personal favorite thing to do is going through the over 600 different champions from unique factions and finding the perfect combination to use in any fight. The Hydra heads are still causing plenty of terror this month. The newest boss in Raid is a giant beast with multiple heads. We've got the Head of Mischief, which causes pure chaotic chaos, the Head of Decay, which tries to slowly weaken your team while keeping its other heads in good shape, and the Head of Torment, aka the Death Metal Album head. I'm sure you can figure out why. And guess what? There's still 3 other heads you have to worry about. This month, Raid is releasing a bunch of new champions, a brand new faction war script for the Shadowkin, and lots of New Year events and tournaments. Also, don't forget if you log in for 7 days between now and January 28th, you'll receive CSGO Legends Simple as a limited edition in-game champion. If you miss that date, you miss out forever. To get a big head start, use my link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen right now. New players get an epic hero Vergus, 1 ancient shard, 200k silver, 1 XP boost, and 1 energy refill. You'll find your rewards in your inbox for the next 30 days only. I'll see you guys in game. Old School's player count the past year has hovered around 75,000 average players. While that number is the lowest it's been in a few years, it's mainly because, well, not much happened. But things are looking up. Next was just released into the game. Yeah, Next, and it's already caused a big spike in players. Economy changes have been added, gold sinks are in the game now for certain items, and more are coming, and we have a lot of new content to look forward to this year. Desert Treasure 2, Raids 3, Leagues 3, PvP updates. Yeah, actually, I'll have to wait and see on that last one. Either way, it's going to be a big year. Now, even with a lower than average player count of 75,000, Old School still would have been in the top 10 most played games on Steam. Anyone who's looking to try out a new game or just wants to see what games are popular can check the Steam charts and find out. Having your game in the top 10 is a big advertisement and boost. I'd say it's a goal of any developer to be high up on these charts. So why isn't Old School up here? Why is it all the way down in the 300s? Well, it's pretty simple. There just isn't really a reason to play on Steam. Steam only tracks the users of a game who are playing on their platform, so anyone using RuneLite does not count. Anyone using the standard vanilla client not on Steam doesn't count. Anyone playing on mobile doesn't count. Anyone using any other third-party clients doesn't count. That's the issue. The majority of players just don't use Steam to play Old School, and I don't blame them. The features you get on RuneLite compared to the vanilla client are unmatched. RuneLite is so loved by the community that in the recent Golden Gnome Awards for the game, RuneLite won the Community Champion Award. Jagex chooses who wins this award, and they gave it to an Old School client that wasn't even their own. Don't get me wrong, I think it was incredibly deserved, I just find it really funny. I kind of ripped on the Steam release a year ago because I knew that the game could be in the top 10 on Steam, but the client they were releasing on Steam wasn't good enough to convince players to switch over to it. My prediction from that video came true. The game is nowhere close to the front page. It's actually worse than I thought. I was thinking there would be at least 5,000 to 10,000 players playing on Steam, but it's only around 1,500. I've come to realize that we're never going to see a big user base on Steam. RuneLite has cemented itself as the go-to client to play the game on, and I don't think that's ever going to change. It offers way too much utility and quality of life, and people have been using it for so long at this point that going from this to this would probably cause a lot of people to straight up quit the game. In order to put the Old School client on Steam, Jagex had to do a complete rewrite of the existing Java client using C++. It was the only way to get the game on Steam. Now, this is a good thing. It allows Jagex to do so much more with the client than they ever were able to do before. Your FPS is no longer capped, there's GPU support, there's better performance. This is all really, really good, but again, not enough to convince players to make the switch. After years of hearing RuneLite versus Jagex and who would come out on top, something crazy happened. On June 15th of last year, they made a massive announcement. RuneLite and Jagex would be working together to help improve the Steam client. Yeah, apparently they're friends now. It's kind of like when Zuko and Aang came together and decided to be on the same team to defeat the Fire Nation, but I don't know who the Fire Nation is at this point. I don't know, maybe RS3? With the help of Adam and the RuneLite devs, dozens of features from the RuneLite client are now going to be on the old school client. Stat boosts, fishing spot indicators, a Chambers of Zarek helper, ground tile markers, and more. All able to be toggled on and off in the settings menu. A couple weeks later, and more updates came. Agility helpers, the ability to zoom in on your minimap, the ability to hide your minimap, interface scaling, and my personal favorite thing, the ability to extend your draw distance so you can see more in the game. You guys know that black box that surrounds you when you're playing your game? Well, it can be partially eliminated by extending your draw distance so you can see farther. Just makes the game look way less ugly. Dozens and dozens of updates to the Steam client, making it way, way better. And then RuneLite released RuneLite HD, and Jagex wanted to shut it down, and there were Falador riots, and people were mad, and Solo Mission was snaking people on Gielinor games, and people hated Jagex, and then they didn't shut down RuneLite HD, and yeah, it was weird. Luckily, things have been resolved on that end, but 117's HD plugin for RuneLite is crazy good. And for players who love the type of graphics that the plugin offers, it's impossible to switch back. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the HD plugin. Do you still use it? Did you try it out and then switch back? I'm interested to see what you guys think about it 5 months after it came out. In October, more updates to the Steam client were released. This time, XP trackers, respawn timers, a Slayer helper, a logout notifier, tooltips, entity highlighting, and more. In a year, we've seen 3 big updates to the Steam client offering many new plugins and quality of life features that make it a much better client than it was a year ago. So what has it done to the average player count of those using the client? Nothing. Aside from the peak player count going up a bit, the average has pretty much stayed the same. But this shouldn't be surprising. At this point, the old school client is playing catch up to RuneLite. We're slowly starting to see many prominent features and plugins from RuneLite being added to the Steam client, and this is good. I just wish Jagex had done this before they released old school on Steam. Imagine if the client that Jagex released day 1 on Steam was this fully polished client with hundreds of plugins and features to make your playing experience way better. While I don't think it would have put the game into the top 10 on Steam, it may have led to new players sticking around longer. I mean, it's definitely a good thing that these changes are happening. I know it's cliche to say better late than never, but that really is the case here. These changes are at least better late than never. So, is it too late for the Steam client to be a true competitor to RuneLite? The answer is looking like it's yes, but with the progress the old school team is making on the Steam client, I'm hopeful that in the future there will be a healthy competition between the two. The thing keeping people from switching over is most likely the fact that everyone is just very comfortable with how they have everything set up on RuneLite. You know how annoying it is to set up a new phone or a new computer and having to reinstall and organize everything again? A lot of people understandably don't want to do that. Another thing is that RuneLite offers features that the Steam client will more than likely never add. Do you guys think that Jagex will ever realistically add things like a clue scroll solver, entity hider, minigame helper plugins, Discord integration? It probably won't happen. RuneLite also has an entire extra plugin hub where users can customize their playing experience even more with hundreds of unique plugins that they could choose from. Small things like adding emojis to your chat box, a plugin that lets you kick open doors, a plugin that lets you name your bank tab. It's even got major plugins that lets you play an entire game mode like Bronzeman mode. Jagex doesn't have that marquee plugin or that feature that is going to make everyone want to use the client. In order for a lot of people to make that switch over, they're going to need to offer something that RuneLite can't, and I really can't think of anything they could add that would make a lot of people want to switch over. It feels like RuneLite has covered every corner of the feature world, so I don't know. What are some things that Jagex would have to offer on their client for you guys to switch over? You are all a lot smarter than I am, so I'm sure you can think of something. For me, the best thing that RuneLite offers is the ability to make the game look good. The GPU plugin is my savior when it comes to video making. For Gielinor games, I used thousands of B-roll shots using the Orb of Oculus. Up-close shots of people's characters, flying over shots of scenery, action shots, you name it. I get a lot of questions asking how I make the characters look really smooth up close, and it's because of the GPU plugin. If you get up really close to a character with the Orb of Oculus, it looks decent except for one thing. The edges are very jagged. You can see it in the hair, the clothes, and even the background. Luckily, the GPU plugin has something called anti-aliasing, and this feature fixes this issue for me. By enabling the highest anti-aliasing setting, every jagged line has now been smoothed out. Some other things it offers that make the shots look better are the remove color bending option. This smooths out the random lines of color you'll see on some objects like the Grand Exchange pillar. Enabling this option turns it kind of into a gradient instead. The biggest difference can be noticed in the shots with movement. If I move around with the orb without the GPU plugin, it kind of looks like everything is constantly jittering, and to me it's way too distracting. GPU plugin solves the issue. The moving shots go from jittery to silky smooth. And I can't forget, of course, the draw distance, which lets me see a lot farther, and the skybox, which changes the black that's used for what you can't see and lets you add a bit of color to it. You can even add a tiny bit of fog to make it a bit more realistic. So that's my reason why I can't make the switch to the Steam client. I could not live without this plugin, and I'm sure all of you have a plugin or two that you feel the same way about. A feature that you just can't see yourself playing without. At the beginning of last year, I still thought that there would be a small chance that Jagex would adopt RuneLite as the official client, but after seeing all of these changes come to the Steam client, I'm confident in saying that it will never happen. At this point, what I hope happens is that there's some healthy competition between the two clients, and we'll see each one get better and better. The only issue I see arising is if Jagex comes out with some amazing feature or setting for the Steam client and they decide that it won't be allowed on RuneLite. I've got a feeling that that still may come. Thanks for watching today's video. Every year I like making a video about the progress of RuneLite and the old school client, since I'm always curious about what kind of changes are happening with the two, and I'm sure next year I'll be making another one. The Steam client is definitely making progressive changes, and I think that's great, but RuneLite remains on top, and it may just remain on top forever. We'll have to wait and see.